Welcome to Resilient Minds 365, where we discuss the resilient stories of entrepreneurs, professionals, and students with mental illnesses to encourage you to strive, thrive, and live in abundance. I'm your host, Cleoni Crawford. Hey y'all, good afternoon, good morning, good night, wherever you all are. This is Cleoni Crawford from Resilient Minds 365. Today I have a special guest with us. Today we have Max Lieberman on the show with us, and I'm looking forward to introducing you to him. Max Lieberman is the founder of Liebs Co. What they do is they help people with disabilities in the workplace by educating the employer through online educational programs so that they can create more inclusive and empathetic workplaces for all people. He's graduated with a Bachelor of Honors in Sports Management in 2016 from Brock University. He lives with a learning disability and depression, which was the learning disability was diagnosed in 2009 and 2013 with depression. He also used to be he used to train to be a pro wrestler, which is really, really cool. And finally, he lived in Glasgow and Paris. With that said, I'd like to introduce you to Max Lieberman. Max, how are you today?
I'm good, Cleoni. How are you today?
You know
It's a
what?
great weekend.
Yeah, I had a wonderful weekend. I can't complain. It was just we had my church had a special um conference all weekend. So I had just been going from service to service, back to back, from Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and now I'm here excited to do this podcast with you to learn more about your mental health challenges and how you were able to be resilient. So yeah, so it was a good weekend, but I'm feeling pretty good.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear. Always doing the best to help out the community is like always a great initiative, and giving back doesn't only make you feel good, but it's just embedded in our DNA. Giving back to people and helping out is part of us, and it's something that we're naturally equipped to do.
Hmm.
So, um, I gotta say that's awesome, and I'm sure everyone is very appreciative.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So, with that said, we're going to get into the interview. So, I'd like to know so we understand what your profession is. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you do with Leads and Co? I understand that you educate, but maybe you can just expound a little bit more. How you started, why you started. Uh,
So I Yeah, so why I started was because my experiences uh in the workplace, I was never really accommodated properly. And I remember asking for accommodations. Employers would say, uh, "This we can't give you this accommodation just because um, y- they give a pen and paper and you can do that." And I'm like, "Well, no, you're not understanding my accommodation. Like I'm asking you to, you know, make a broken down to-do list for me." And that's what I required. And one of them says to me, "Well, I you can write, can't you?" I'm like, "Yes." "Well, then you can do it yourself." And I looked over, I'm like, "You're not understanding my accommodation request. My request is for you to make that to-do list and that checklist for me because I can't keep up with the information that's being processed sometimes." And and you might even notice with me when I communicate through this interview that I go back or vice versa because I'm trying to sort my thoughts, and
mhm.
that's part of the problem when I'm hearing people communicate with me in person is because I'm trying to sort it and process it. So when I put it to paper, it takes a little bit longer. And then you ask me to write it out. I can't read my handwriting sometimes. And that's part of dysgraphia, and that's what I have. So not being understood by my employer when I ask for accommodations was
Mhm.
one of the things. And another thing is someone just Sally, it's people with disabilities is viewed as burden sometimes, and I felt like I was a burden sometimes. So I remember I would not disclose, and when I did disclose, I have gotten, some great support and some terrible support. And one of the terrible supports that I got was that I didn't disclose during an interview because I recently wasn't getting hired for disclosing during interviews, and I explained why, what accommodations I needed. But again, they said they went with the better candidate, which I understandably there's always other candidates that they feel more your vibe with. But part of the reason sometimes I feel that I wasn't is because I disclosed, and other people told me you should disclose only afterwards, so they have no choice.
Mm-hmm.
But in this case, I decided to go that route, and not only go that route because someone told me about it. I just felt in my gut. It was just like, okay, maybe I won't mention it, see what happens. And I got hired, and then 2 weeks in to this job in 2019, I was brought into my employer's office, and he said, "Listen, you're asking a lot of questions. You're annoying. A lot of the people are annoyed with you, and I'm thinking about firing you." And I said to him, "Well, I have a learning disability, and that's why I've asked all these questions. And it's only been 2 weeks in, so you have to think, not training, it's still a training period, so all this stuff." And he's like, "Oh, why didn't you tell me during the interview?" I'm like, "Because you probably wouldn't have hired me if I disclosed to you there." And he's like, "Well, it's 2019, everyone has a learning disability."
Mm.
Kind of, blanketing the fact that everyone has a someone learns differently, or people who have disabilities are, you know, um, that the disability is not valid, and you're just trying to blanket it. Not everyone's disability is the same, and that's where it kind of hit me. I'm like, wow, not only do I not want to be part of this work for this person, but I also feel like no, the lack of understanding is not there.
Yes.
So I was thinking in my head when he said that, um, I have to get out of here and I can't be involved. And then he asked me if I had a plan. This is something you just don't ask someone who has a learning disability or a disability in general, if you have a plan, because most of us understand how to interact with our environment and understand what works for us. And when you ask us these questions, like kind of diminishing the fact that we don't know our own experiences and what we need. We are experts at what we need. And when we say we need this help, you shouldn't brush it off and say you can do it this way yourself or this way. Can we improve our plan? Yes, but listen to what we're saying. Truly listen and understand why we ask for these accommodations. Don't assume that we're lazy. Don't assume that you know we don't work as hard. This is just areas we struggle with, and sometimes we need help with. And especially for me with a learning disability, that's an area I struggle with.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay. Well, I'm glad that you were able to start this organization to hopefully educate other people because unfortunately, I'm sorry that you had to go through that experience because that does sound like that he was a bit ignorant and that, you know, it could have been a good working environment if he was, more willing to understand where you're coming from. But, sometimes that's how life is, you know.
Exactly. I can't be the one who I can't be living in the past and be like, okay, this he did something. And he actually, I gotta say, gave me a motivation to do this because I realized if I'm not the only one going through this, because I guarantee there's other people who experience just the same things that I've experienced because of this, because of these views that people have. So I completely am grateful for him for actually doing that because it pushed me towards doing this.
Okay, that's awesome. Awesome. Okay, well, with that said, we will go right into the interview and we will discuss your mental health story of resilience. Tell us more about um your how you suffered with not really suffered, how you lived with depression and your learning and disabilities and how you were able to be resilient despite all of that you'd gone through. So I'd love to hear your story.
Um, so growing up, I'm an only child, and I
Okay.
remember from the youngest age, my parents, around the time I hit 6, were not in a good place with each other. Constant fighting, yelling, screaming, and my dad also drank a lot. Not saying like it's excuse, but he drank, and they just always constantly fight. And I remember sitting there at 6, being like, okay, this is not healthy. And you know, one time like my dad had like my dad got the cops came to take my dad out of the house, and it got to the point where like it got physical sometimes. Like I saw him one time throw a hot cup of coffee at my mom in her
Oh
face.
no.
And I had no one to talk to about this, and I was just, you know, a 6-year-old kid, and I was struggling at home. And that's when you know, you're supposed to be safe, because you know you're at school, you have your own school problems, like whoever may be in your home problems. So I have my home problems with that, but I'll go to school and I'll be struggling with my learning disability in school because I couldn't keep up, and I was always concerned about what's going on at home, how how my mom was doing, and vice versa. So I just was really like torn as a kid. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember saying to myself when I was a kid, feeling down on myself won't help anything. I couldn't feel down, and I just, you know, I put a smile on my face, even though I'm in pain constantly, that I'll just smile. And it made everyone come towards me, but really I was hiding the fact that I was in pain. I wasn't smiling because I was happy about everything that's going on. I knew I couldn't control what my parents were doing, but it helped me get through it a little bit at the time. And I knew then, like I knew at that point, looking back now, like I was going through a depressive period, and I didn't know if how bad it was going to get. Um, but obviously, my parents ended up staying together, and because me being a 6-year-old at the time didn't understand the full concept of how people, you know, go apart, and knowing grow apart, but also have conflict with one another. I just, you know, oh, your family's together,
Mm-hmm.
and convince my parents to get back together. And um, it was a constant from 6 years old until 18, 19 when I left for university. It was on and off fighting every day, and just, you know, there's a small sliver line. My dad had like a year and a half of non-drinking, and it was really good. It wasn't as that bad, but you know, there's just a lot of, there was just constant yelling and fighting. I don't remember one night where just 1 week without fighting, uh, if it was during that time period.
Wow. Wow. So, when did you discover that you were actually going through? Because I understand. So, when you were younger, um, you had, I guess, bouts of depression. Excuse me, bouts of depression. Well, depressive episodes. When did you discover that you were living with depression? You said that 2013, I believe.
I was diagnosed, but I also I went on medication in 2013. Brock University doctor. Um, I went to him, and you know, they gave me medication, and I had like throughout my medical history from 2013, 15 and 18, I've been on and off medication. And um, I noticed in high school, I believe it, and even in grade school, there's some points where I was really depressed at school.
Mhm.
Just wasn't happy with everything. I didn't feel cool, or I didn't feel popular, and I just remember like I didn't feel like a lot I fit in. So I remember like grade 8, like the end of grade 8, I hated school. I hated a lot of things about school, and then even in the summer, like even like in grade 11, I know during some seasons I'll get seasonal depressed or whatever maybe, but I wouldn't show it as much. It wasn't like as bad as I thought it would be. I thought it was just a seasonal thing, but it really took off once my parents started getting divorced, and it was just it wasn't even just a seasonal, just in general, about everything from 2013 to about 2019.
Wow. Wow. And that must have been challenging for you. So what did you have to do to, um, so you've been on, so from what I understand, you've been on and off of medication?
Yeah, so I forget the name of the drug. I actually should have got the before we started. I still have the pill case if you want to go get it. I can tell you the medication I was on, the most recent one.
Oh, no, that's not necessary.
Um, but I was on and off the medication because like some of the meds I didn't enjoy, being on, like some of them made me feel like a fake happy. The other ones like allowed me to, drink have a little bit of alcohol, but also, just enjoy. And the other one just like pure, like the strongest med I've ever been on for a med for depression. And I was just like, oh, it made me feel fine. But like for the first like 3 days, like I got dizzy, I had to sleep, my hands were like shaped like this.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the side effects. But once I got into the rhythm, it was like, okay, I took that pill and and it legitimately made me feel fine. But again, it was a kind of like it didn't feel natural, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. So tell us, what did you have to do to overcome or bounce back from your low points? Please list all resources that were applicable.
There's a lot. Like
Okay.
I I started meditating when I came back from France in 2019. That helped a lot. Um, that was really good because it gave me more self-awareness and put me in an area where I wanted to be. I got a dog when I came back from France in 2019. They
Okay.
keep me positive in the moment, not only in the moment, but my dog Churchill, who's walking around right now and constantly trying to get my attention at the moment. He just keeps me present, and it gives me that unconditional love that I wasn't feeling for the longest time. I wasn't feeling love from like for a long time. I didn't even feel like I deserved love since I was a kid. So it's like he's given me something that I had this unconditional love just for me being me, and he gives me every night, like if it's cuddling, kisses, whatever it may be. It's the best thing. He even walks. I start my day with a walk, and I go out for an hour and a bit, and I get to see the sunlight, I get to see all that jazz. So it's really it's really been helpful. Uh, moving on from people who not are negative, but like I really have outgrown in the sense of where I want to be in my life, even though like
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate everything they've done for me and everything that all the memories we have together. I just realized sometimes it's time for me to move on to a new chapter and grow as a person.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to do that too. I had to really think about, like, do I see myself being in this being with this group of people for the rest of my life, and or some communication. So I really had to ask myself these questions. And also when I even went to France, like I went to France because I felt really part of a community and I felt part of a friend group, even though I didn't speak the language well. So it was a bunch of small things that I started really taking to myself, where I knew I would feel fine, feel good, and do what I wanted to do. What helps make you feel better about yourself. So I started doing those small things, and also I cut out drinking. I haven't had a sip of alcohol since October of 2020. Um,
Wow.
so we'll see. Will I have a drink again? I don't want to. I don't feel a need to. But if it's a ceremony where they say, oh, like when you go to like a wedding or a, like Easter or Passover or whatever it may be, everyone used to have a drink. I may, but again, I'm not going out of my way to get it. I really am not.
Okay, okay. So we hear a few different themes. We have meditation, we have pet therapy. Um, I guess your travels was helpful. And what was the last one? I think that was all I can remember. From what I remember for the three. So those are some really good ones. What are three things that you wish you had available when you were at your lowest point?
Uh, I think someone to talk to. Generally,
Mhm.
like I know I went to some camp, like I had a IEP caseworker at Brock, and they helped me. But again, I just wasn't ready. I had to be ready for it, and I
Mhm.
wish that I was ready at the time, but I didn't want to talk about it because the the viewpoint of a man is that you have problems, deal with it, suck it up, and just keep going. You're supposed to ignore what problems you have and just keep
Mhm.
going, and that's what was like stuck with me, and it shouldn't have been stuck with me. Another thing I wish I had was just the awareness to go for help and not sit around and think like, for example, turning to alcohol or drug abuse or whatever it may be at, like when you're in university, when you're partying, to go um, to, you know, actually figure out my problems instead of going with what the is expected to go party and do things.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I should have dealt with better. And honestly, finally, I really should have just took time to think to myself, really took the time to think about what I really wanted instead of following the crowd, because I would when you follow the crowd and you don't feel happy, it's a sign that more bad things would come. Because I just felt like there was a dark cloud following me for the longest time
Mm-hmm.
when I wasn't doing what felt right for me. And when you have that dark cloud, you make a lot of bad decisions that you will definitely regret later.
Okay. Yeah, that's very important. It's very important to be true to yourself, so that so that you can actually, um, I don't know what I'm trying to say. I lost my train of thought.
No worries, no worries.
Yeah, I lost my train of thought. That's okay. So my next question is, what words of hope can you give to our listeners in regards to being resilient and bouncing forward and so forth?
Just listen to your body, listen to
Mhm.
your mind. Don't like, I know people say like, oh, obviously don't listen to your mind when it's saying like you're better off dead. You're not. Like, there's people who care about you. I had a moment where I wanted to commit suicide, and it was more than once. I was driving down on Bathurst and Wilson, and I was about to drive onto oncoming traffic, and because I hated myself so much, and this was
Wow.
in 2018 in September, and I obviously don't listen to those voices. You have a lot to live for. You have a lot to give, but take a step back in the moment where the situations where you're not feeling good about yourself, and truly think about what is best for you, not what is expected of you, what's best for you. And just think like, am I happy with what I'm doing? Is it fitting who I am? And just start asking yourself these questions. Don't it doesn't have to be for someone else to make them feel happy or proud. It's
Right.
ultimately it's your life, and people want you around and because they love you who you are, and that's the truth. It's just, it seems like because everyone else is doing well or whatever maybe what they're happy with, you feel like your world's collapsing sometimes. So I feel that you have to figure out you first um before making any judgments there, because yeah, some people might not be listening, but there's always another crowd, there's always another option, there's always other people who will be there for you, and you just have to realize that you know you might be in a bad situation right now with the current group or whatever it may be, but always something else. There's another door that can take you to a path where you discover more about yourself and discover um, pathways that will help make you feel better about yourself and and manage the symptoms that you have.
Okay. So be true to yourself. Listen to yourself. I guess listen to the positive parts of yourself is probably what we could can take from there. So with that said, we are now going to switch a little bit
Mhm.
in this interview. As you can see behind me, there is a book, and the book is called The Music of My Life.
Yeah.
And basically, it's about my journey with mental health. But I also talk about music therapy. So my question to you is, what type of music do you like?
Oof, that's a good question. I listen to a lot of music actually. Clooney, I listen to my favorite is Jimi Hendrix and Bob Marley. Uh,
Ooh.
I like them. I listen to them a lot. I also, I know I mentioned in the questionnaire, I love also Imagine Dragons. That song, Believe,
Yeah.
always pumps me up. I really do. I really like them. But
Mhm.
if I'm just gonna listen to some classics, listen to anything, to be honest, would be Jimi Hendrix or Bob Marley, just stuff like that. Eminem's there too, obviously. Um, and I do enjoy my techno when I'm going out with
Mm.
friends, but uh, in Europe. But in general, it's like I'm more of like a laid back person. I haven't even listened to music in a while. In a while. I'm being honest with you. I haven't probably put on music in my house in, I think, 6 months or so.
Oh, wow, that's a very long time to be without music.
Yeah, and uh, it's definitely a weird time because I focus better when I'm in quiet. But when I listen to music, it's usually if I'm cooking or if I'm doing something different. Excuse me, or if I normally listen to it when I'm going to work on the bus because I like listening to music on the bus.
Right.
But I haven't been doing that. I've been working from home and I'm enjoying that. So it's been kind of lessened, unfortunately.
Okay, okay, I understand. So you mentioned the song Believer by Imagine Dragons. Would you say that that would be a song that describes your journey? And if so, why? Yeah, why?
Um, I believe it would because everyone has those moments when you have your up and downs, and sometimes your downs are very, very low. And my downs were very, very low from 2012, end of 2012, well, end of first year 2012 to beginning of 2019, mid 2019. Like I was in a bad spot. I tell you, there's moments where I was getting too frustrated. I was doing stuff that I didn't enjoy, particularly. Sometimes I was doing things that, just for the sake of doing things to be part of a group, or
Hmm.
whatever it may be. It didn't feel right, and I always looked for myself. I had to get better. There's a way to get better. I always looked for something to make myself feel better, and not even make myself feel better, but make myself feel like I know where I'm going, and I had to go for my own journey to figure out where I am now,
Hmm.
and that's what Believer really says, because to me at least, because it's difficult to move forward if you don't believe in yourself and believe that you can do it,
Right,
and
right.
that's what the song really says to me is if you can believe in yourself and you can move forward, you can do anything.
Yeah, definitely. That's a very good message. It's a very good message. So, Max, how can we stay in touch with you? What are your social media handles?
So for my business, it's Liebs and Co at Liebs and Co, and you can also that's on Instagram. That's at Facebook. That's on LinkedIn if you're looking for business to discuss business. But if you want to message me personally, you can follow me on Instagram at Max Liebs. I believe it's Max Liebs 09, or Max Liebs 9. I can't remember. It's I can check to make sure. Give me 1 second. Just because I don't want to give any wrong information.
Right, right, right. Which do you
Uh,
prefer? Do you prefer the Liebs and Co?
I prefer uh, Liebs and Co for professional, and It's Max Liebs 09
Yes,
on,
I see it here.
yeah, Max Liebs 09 on Instagram. I prefer that, that if it's personal, but if you want to connect with me for business, it's at Liebs and Co.
Cool, cool. All right. So, with that said, I would like to thank you, Max, for being a guest on our show. And with that said, to all you resilient minds out there, until next time, please subscribe to us on all our platforms and don't forget to rate the show and leave a review for us on Apple Podcasts. Also, join the community of resilient minds and sign up for our monthly newsletter at www.cleonicrawford.com. Be sure to grab a copy of my book, The Music of My Life, and 30 plus 1 Resilient Stories on all Amazon marketplaces to get to know me better. If you can think of one person that can receive value from today's show or connect with Max's testimonial, please share it with them. Feel free to take a screenshot of this week's episode of the podcast and tag us on Instagram. You can tag myself at Only Cleoni or Resilient Minds 365 and today's guest at Liebs and Co Liebs Co, or Max Lieberman. And remember, mental health is not a death sentence. Despite your illness, you can strive, thrive, and live a life of abundance. Until next time, I'm Cleoni Crawford, and I'm signing off.